Andrew Huberman, being the scientist he is, doesn't understand what science can and can't inform upon and talks about the treatments for, I don't know, many different ailments, including cancer, apparently.
I can't help but ask of some other examples of drugs that have been shown to treat things other than what most people associate that drug with.
Well, that were associated with ameliorations of certain conditions, sure, fine.
You come to mind, women who had localized breast cancer, if they had lidocaine injected around the tumor before surgery, 8 to 10 minutes before surgery, there was a 29% reduction in mortality at 5 years versus those who did not have lidocaine injected.
Are you serious? Who is this guy? Who is this guy? Dr. Fajgenbaum? I have no idea. That is an extremely noisy and weak inference. So you're telling me, first of all, you said women, not all women, okay? A certain group of women studied, all right? So if you're a responsible scientist, you understand that basically any study that's done on a group of people cannot be extrapolated to any person not studied. So no, not all women with breast cancer even. Not all women with breast cancer. Then you say that there's an association between people that had lidocaine injected around the area of surgery for breast cancer purposes and a 29% not reduction, but lower incidence rate of mortality 5 years after the surgery had been performed? And you're going to sit there and say it's because of lidocaine? You can. That's your opinion. Dr. Huberman here did not ask you that question, though. He asked you what drugs have actually been proven to be treatments for other diseases that were not intended for that disease to be treated. That's not the reason why the drug was produced or created. In which case, the responsible and correct answer to that question is you cannot inform upon that. I can provide you my opinion based on, well, in this case, as we see, whatever inferences we'd like, or I'd like. Because your goal as a scientist is to cut through the noise. It's not to embrace it and or ignore it. You want to talk about the noise around that inference? No confounders were controlled for. Also, 29% lower incidence rate. What does that equate to in absolute terms? Oh boy! I think at this point I would have just I would have just cleared the video. If I had seen this in my personal time, I would X out immediately.
Aspirin also has been shown to reduce risk of recurrence of.
No, not risk. Risk is a cause and effect statement. There are no studies that can inform upon the risk of any heart health outcome or disease process as that relates to any aspect of human nutrition over any given period of time throughout the entire time human nutrition science has existed. There never has been and there never will be, because if you actually understand human nutrition science, you understand how to interpret the data. It's based on statistics, descriptive and inferential, and that cannot inform upon causality outside of the context of a vacuum. It's the entire reason why inferential statistics makes no claims about causality. The study itself doesn't. You can check out a video that I did with a data analyst by the name of Thomas Matcham from the UK, in which he actually did a presentation wherein he discusses this at length, because this is extremely important to understand. Extremely important to understand. It cannot inform upon causality unless you control for every single confounding and or spurious and or lurking variable, which is effectively impossible. Unless you're talking about areas of science like physics and things, it's still difficult, but you can do it there. In which case, then it's still hard to extrapolate that to a larger system in which confounders are now introduced. See how this is really complicated?
Cancer. It turns out.
No, no. What it was associated with, because that's what we're talking about, it was associated with a lower incidence rate in the people studied, and however many observations were conducted and aggregated into a meta-analysis potentially of colon cancer. And then there are mechanistic speculations as to why that may have occurred if there is a causal relationship. That is how science works. This is your opinion. There is no reduced risk being established or increased risk of anything being established in any area of statistics, especially human nutrition science and human health science like this. This is his opinion. This is what we call scientism and a worship of theology, because that's what this is. This is theology.
That if you start kids on a TNF inhibitor, they stop having strokes.
No, all of them? Really? They stop having strokes. Not to mention, hold on a minute, a TNF inhibitor. Is that involved in inflammation? TNF? TNF alpha? Is a stroke a form of cardiovascular disease? Is cardiovascular disease caused unequivocally by damage to the arterial system that is chronic? In the high pressure areas of the vascular system, particularly? Even more particularly, areas of the vascular system that not only are higher pressure, but also experience the most turbulent blood flow? So if you inhibit inflammation, what you'll have is not an inhibition of the damage that you're incurring, which would be the appropriate response to cardiovascular disease prevention, but what you have is an inhibition of the response to the damage, which is plaque buildup. So yes, you're preventing an unstable rupturing of soft plaque, causing blood clots, myocardial infarctions, or in this case, a stroke, but you aren't doing yourself an actual service because, well, you're still incurring damage and sustaining damage to arteries from things that you are doing, that you are introducing from the external environment of your own free will and volition. Such as, I don't know, dumping hundreds of grams of carbohydrates down your throat every day.
Is typically utilized for gout, but it has a very substantial reduction in heart disease risk if you...
Nope, not risk and not reduction. Those are cause and effect statements. We're done.
Prior heart attack, and in
if you had a prior heart attack. So what's the mechanism there?
if you had a prior heart attack and you have diabetes, no one...
Really? So, a great way of ameliorating diabetes and heart disease, by the way, subsequently, if the heart disease is at least most primarily influenced by your diabetes, which it seems to be the case when you look at the fact that, I don't know, of the diabetics studied in the past, over 70% of them die of cardiovascular disease. And I mean type 2 diabetics particularly. And then there's predictions that 70% of them will be diabetic, or 70% of pre-diabetics studied that will be diabetic in under a decade. I wrote about this in my book, Contrainidicated, a closer look and revision of mainstream health axioms that have perpetuated illness, disorder, and disease for over a century. If you have not bought this book already, links are in the description below for paperback, hardcover, ebook, and self-narrated audiobook edition, because I am all about authenticity. Go check that out. But I did write about that in the prologue, actually. And I don't think there's any coincidence there. But if you actually want, as I was saying, you want an amelioration of that to the best degree possible, you eat a species-appropriate, species-specific diet for your speciation, that being Homo sapiens sapien, which, as established from comparative anatomy, chemical anthropology, observational paleoanthropology, certain elements of our biochemistry, is very clear that it is a carnivore diet that consists primarily of the muscle meat and the inherent associated fat of that muscle meat of ruminant animals, with added fat given our modern context and given the fact that therefore we are looking at the best approximation to the diet. So before people try and criticize me for saying, well, added fat isn't ancestrally consistent, that's not the point. Butter, tallow, lard, suet, and ghee, in the forms of butter, tallow, lard, suet, and ghee. Added salt to taste. Don't overdo the salt. You can cause yourself some problems there, it seems. And water. There you go. Cut the carbohydrates, cut the seed oils, cut the things that our genes are not evolved to genotypically withstand, or evolve to a genotypic adaptation, a degree of full genotypic adaptation, according to the Darwinian principles of evolution and the subsequent principles of indication. So,
suffer from Bachman-Bupp without being on DFMO. No one should have breast cancer without having had lidocaine. No one should be a healthy 50-year-old man who might be able to have their risk of heart attack reduced. It might be that
Well, okay, so this is based on a false premise, though. I reject the premise that in order to do that, you have the evidence to suggest that these things do all of these things that reduce all of these problems.
Colchicine is helpful for
It seems. Good use of the word seems. I believe that's what he said.
reducing your risk of heart disease. But to your point,
Okay, so that's an appropriate statement. It seems that it's helpful for reducing your risk of heart disease, because that's now an opinion.
can we find all these breadcrumbs? Can we put them together, and can we make sure people actually benefit from all the great science that's being
No, not great science. No, sorry. It's not great science. It's theology, sir. It is theology, I'm sorry. I'm not saying to never conduct this science. The only real distinction between theology and this type of science is that this type of science is through material methods. And not just material methods, but it actually observes material phenomena. Theology is far more abstract. And that is, I'm a realist, I understand that. But I am specifically referring to the weight that the inferences have, the weight that the results have. They are so noisy that, in fact, theology can actually be less noisy. Yeah, I mean, so in certain aspects, the ones that are actually relevant to discovering truth, this can actually be worse than theology. Just depends on what aspect you're referring to. We need to be humble here. We really do. And I can already hear the critics. That's really ironic, Eddie. Listen to how you are acting right now. Look at yourself. I'm self-aware. I understand. Humility does not necessarily require you to be extremely conciliatory. That is not what that means. It means to accept ignorance in places where you are ignorant, and to accept that other people or other entities, whatever belief system you have, may very well know more than you do. And not only more than you do, more than you ever will. No matter how you express that, whether it's blah, 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 or whether it's okay?
all over the world. Let's actually translate them into patients.
I can't.
Okay, so I figured that this was going to be a short clip. So this is just yet another example of how this is a bunch of bread and circuses nonsense. It's just a waste of time. People feel so deflated and discouraged and uninspired and despondent, whatever word you want to use, whenever they keep hearing these conflicting messages regarding science. Seed oils reduce your risk of blank by blank percent. Oh, well, actually, no, it's inflammatory. It causes heart disease. Oh, no, blah, 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 blah. It's because the very field is so unbelievably noisy. It's bordering on not being scientific. I talk about this at length. I talk about this in chapter 1 of my book. I've been doing more videos like this because it's important to discuss. There are harder inferences that you can refer to that have far less noise around the signal. That's why they're harder inferences. People want to know the distinction between soft and hard science. The distinction is that hard science has very little noise. That's what makes it hard. Comparative anatomy, chemical anthropology, observational paleoanthropology, Darwinian principles of evolution, subsequent principles of indication, and certain elements of our biochemistry. Composite inference, don't look at each one of those in isolation. Look at all of them together. The picture becomes very clear. The way to prevent disease, 99.99% of the time, is through external means. In other words, the cause of 99.99% of disease, besides very rare certain genetic abnormalities, is external. It's externally caused. It's caused by the environment in which your genes are placed, and by you yourself. You know, what you do to your body, what environment you're placing those genes, what you're eating, what you're doing. But not only what you're eating and what you're doing, but what you're not eating and what you're not doing. Because at the end of the day, those are the same thing. If you're not doing something and you're not eating something, since time is finite, you're just doing something else. It's not that you're not doing something. You're just doing something else. You're replacing what you're not doing with something else. So you're still doing something. So really, same thing. It's caused by things that you're doing and things things that you're doing to yourself, to your body. Okay? Species appropriate, species specific diet. Live as ancestrally consistent as is feasible and reasonable. Okay, I'm not saying to give up climate controlled environments, for example, but that does mean that there is still a certain level of adaptation that needs to be considered as well. This is why we look for an approximation, not a full 100% adaptation. Okay, I mainly focus on food. I do. I'm not saying that lifestyle doesn't matter. I'm saying that I think food is the most important. I really do, because it has the most intimate effects on our genes. Why wouldn't it? You're actually putting something inside your body every day. So forget this noisy, stupid science. This is not an insult towards Andrew Huberman or this doctor. As much as I said we need to exhibit humility, with the implication with that claim being that he's not humble, he's arrogant, therefore Andrew Huberman is arrogant. It doesn't mean that they're arrogant or it doesn't mean that they're arrogant, ignorant people. It means that whether they realize it or not, this is an exhibition of arrogance. We all fail to meet the ideal. Hypocrisy is the tribute that vice pays to virtue. Okay? But we still need to call this out. So, if you enjoyed the video, leave a like. Subscribe to me if you haven't already. If you haven't subscribed yet, I'm really not sure what you're doing. I'm watching you. Leave your thoughts in the comment section below. And also, buy my book, Contrainidicated, if you haven't already, as I said. But also, most importantly, really, at this point, if you are not a member of our carnivore certification program that gets you internationally accredited to be an internationally certified and accredited carnivore coach, you are really missing out. You are really missing out. Why is that? You may have noticed online that there are many people that call themselves coaches that really have no idea what they're talking about. And if you're lucky, they have a good physique. But a lot of times they actually don't. If you didn't know, though, you probably already know that, but if you didn't know, the requirements to call yourself said coach are 0. Nothing. I can call myself a coach right now, and it would be completely legal. Yeah, so that should scare you. As much as it's a fallacy to appeal to authority, and, if you know me, I'm not a fan of appealing to authority. But it's so unregulated that anyone on the street can call themselves, a lifestyle coach, okay? And so what that does is, I'm not saying that I'm necessarily against that. Call yourself whatever you want, but natural selection, free market. What it does is it imposes a demand on people that do know what they're talking about to fight back against, to increase the supply of people that actually do know what they're talking about, because we need this message to spread far and wide about carnivore, okay? We are spreading it farther and wider, but we are still not mainstream. We're still in the fringe, okay? We're mainstream within the fringe, and that's only the beginning. It's not the end. And so if you're someone that is, ameliorated certain health conditions, seen how much this transforms others as well, I think you have a moral obligation to spread this message. And this is a great way for you to be able to do this. This is headed by carnivore coach Peter, someone who's coached clients for over 20 years and decided to take a break to coach coaches, such as potentially yourself. This is a program that continues to evolve in terms of the information that we are providing. We have just recruited Coach Stephen Thomas for the interpretation of blood tests. I've contributed multiple modules to this program surrounding topics such as cholesterol, saturated fat, and heart disease, the Randall cycle, vitamin C metabolism, gluconeogenesis, ketogenesis, uncoupled versus coupled mitochondria, exogenous carbohydrates, dietary carbohydrates, implications in high-intensity training, whether it's appropriate, and if so, and under what conditions, to introduce carbohydrates back into someone's diet, into your client's diet, etc., etc. This separates you from regular so-called coaches because you are being internationally accredited through the National Academy of Sports Medicine and the Athletics and Fitness Association of America. This allows you to actually speak directly with medical professionals of your clientele. It's easier to acquire insurance. It makes your job a lot safer to do. It's something that is extremely important, and you are getting, it's an incomprehensible fraction of the price that you're going to be paying to get an education from a university. And the education that you are acquiring from this program is, once again, continuing to evolve and build upon itself, so it's not finished. It's continuing to evolve. And also, in terms of what's already there, is 1,000 times better in terms of quality than you're going to be getting from university. Not to mention that until January, there is a even further discount that you will acquire, and you'll be able to receive a direct consultation service with me. It's the only way to actually do this at the moment, for free on your part. This is all a no-brainer. This is an absolute no-brainer. This is something that you need to get in and finish and complete at your own pace with lifetime access. It's a no-brainer. So the way to do that, check out our website below and to learn more about the program. I'll also link at the top right corner of the screen an interview that I did with Coach Peter to learn more about him, if you want to know more about him and how he arrived at the carnivore space, and also more about the program. And most importantly, the best way to do this is to schedule a free call. Yes, it just builds upon itself, doesn't it? It's a free call with Peter directly through the links in the description below, his Facebook, his Instagram, his email, so that you can discuss this in a more personalized fashion and eventually be recruited into the program and fight the good fight, help to fight the good fight with a good community that you will also be involved in. So I really hope to see you there. You're the one missing out if you're not there. You really are. We've done everything in our power to make this as good for you as possible. And so with that being said, I do hope to see you there. And join me next time. We're reacting to more nonsense. So, till then.